My husband and I agreed that the house bought with my inheritance would stay in my name. Then his mother showed up, demanded his name be added to the deed so he can have something, if we ever separated. My grandfather passed away recently. It has been an emotional time for me and my family, as he was someone we all loved dearly. My grandmother had already passed away before him. After his passing, we learned the details of his will. He had carefully divided his belongings between my parents and me. He left his home to my parents, ensuring they would have a place that carried his memory. As for me, he left me all the money that was in his bank account. This was a significant amount, and I am grateful for his generosity. This inheritance is not just money to me. It is a final gift from my grandfather, a part of him that he wanted me to have. It makes me feel both grateful and sad at the same time because I would trade any amount of money just to have more time with him. Since I am married and have a small child, I wanted to make sure that the money left to me was used wisely, something that would benefit my family in the long run. After thinking it over, I decided that the best thing to do was to buy a house for us. Owning a home would provide security and stability for my husband, our child, and me. It felt like the right way to honor my grandfather's generosity by investing in something meaningful and lasting. Before making any decisions, I did have a discussion with my husband. I wanted the house to be in my name only. Thankfully, my husband fully supported my decision. He understood that this was my inheritance and respected my choice. So I went ahead and bought the house. While my husband has had no issue with this, my mother-in-law does. She has not been happy with the fact that the house is in my name alone. Mother-in-law reached out to me to give me an earful. Right away, she made it clear that she thought what I had done was completely unacceptable. She told me in no uncertain terms that buying a house without including my husband's name on the deed was disrespectful and went against everything she believed was right. She argued that as a woman, I should have no problem putting my husband's name on the deed if I really loved him. That statement caught me off guard. I didn't understand why she was saying something like that. From my perspective, this had nothing to do with love or respect for my husband. It was simply a financial decision based on the fact that the inheritance was left to me alone. My husband and I had already talked about it, and he had no issue with the house being in my name only. So if he didn't have a problem with it, why did she? When I calmly explained this to her, instead of backing off, she doubled down. She started talking about how back in her time, women didn't behave so selfishly, and how a wife's money was basically her husband's money anyway. According to her, my financial independence wasn't just unusual, it was wrong. She seemed to believe that by not automatically handing over part ownership of the house, I was somehow failing as a wife to her son. My mother-in-law then started attacking the way I was raised. She went on a tirade about how my parents had clearly failed in teaching me proper values and how that was the reason I had no manners or respect for my husband. At that point, I asked her to stop. She was getting personal. In her mind, a proper wife wouldn't even think of making a big financial decision without putting her husband's name on it. However, my parents raised me to be independent, responsible, and to make smart choices for myself and my family. They never taught me to blindly follow outdated expectations or to put someone else's name on something just to appear respectful. I asked her outright, if my husband had been the one to inherit money and buy a house, would she have expected him to add my name to the deed? Without hesitation, she shot back that it wasn't the same thing. According to her, my situation was completely different and didn't compare. She went on to say that she would have never allowed her son to do that if he had received an inheritance, the house would have been in his name alone, no questions asked. That response told me everything I needed to know. In her mind, it was perfectly fine for a husband to keep financial assets in his own name, but not a wife. She saw no issue with my husband owning a house without me on the deed. Yet when I have done the exact same thing, it is suddenly selfish and disrespectful. I stood my ground and made it clear to her that this was my decision made with my money and with my husband's support. Whether she liked it or not, that wasn't going to change anything. Mother-in-law then changed her tactics. She argued that if I wasn't willing to put my husband's name on the deed, then I should at least include her name instead. I was stunned. What logical reason could she possibly have for believing that she, of all people, should be added to my house deed? It wasn't her money, it wasn't her inheritance, and she had contributed absolutely nothing to this purchase. Yet somehow she still felt entitled to a say in it. When I asked her why on earth she thought she should be added to the deed, her reasoning truly floored me. She argued that by putting her name on the house, she was simply ensuring her son's future. According to her, if my husband and I ever divorced, I would take the house away from him and he would be left with nothing. So this way he would at least get something. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. First of all, my husband and I were happily married, so why was she even thinking about divorce? Second, the house was my purchase with my inheritance. If anyone had a claim to it, it was me, even if there was a divorce from my husband. But apparently in her mind, I was just a temporary part of her son's life, and my financial decisions needed to be made with a potential divorce in mind. The audacity. At this point, I couldn't take her seriously anymore. So half-jokingly, I said, "Sure, I'll put your name on the deed. Just give me 50% of the house's value. In fact, I'll do you one better. The moment you pay half, I'll add your son's name, which is exactly what you want." She immediately started sputtering about how that was unrealistic and how it was ridiculous of me to expect her to pay 50% when she doesn't have that kind of money. Oh, so now it was unrealistic. I found it amusing that she thought she had a right to my house for free. But the second she was asked to contribute something financially, suddenly it wasn't such a fair idea anymore. Her hypocrisy was crystal clear. She didn't actually want to invest in the house, she just wanted control. She wanted a safety net for her son at my expense. But when it came time to put her money where her mouth was, she wasn't willing to do so. She could rant all she wanted, but at the end of the day, the house was mine, and nothing was going to change that. If you're wondering how my mother-in-law got to be so entitled, well, this is just who she is. She has always been pushy and overbearing, acting as if she has the right to control everything around her. When I first met her, I was genuinely shocked by how demanding she was. Most people try to make a good impression when meeting their future in-laws for the first time, but not her. She made it very clear from the start that she saw me as beneath her. One of the first things she told me was that she came from a wealthier family than mine and that I didn't really deserve her son, as if marriage were some sort of transaction where only people of a certain financial status were worthy of her approval. For context, yes, my mother-in-law does come from a wealthy family. But here's the catch. She lost all her money after she and my father-in-law made a series of terrible investments. They weren't just unlucky. They also made reckless financial choices and ended up losing everything. So while she once had money, she no longer does. But that doesn't stop her from acting like she is still above everyone else. Compared to her, my father-in-law is incredibly chill. He's the type of person who goes with the flow, and honestly, I've never had any issues with him. He doesn't interfere in our marriage, doesn't try to control us, and certainly doesn't act entitled to things that aren't his. I sometimes wonder how he puts up with my mother-in-law's constant need to assert her dominance. But maybe he's just learned to tune her out over the years. One of the things my mother-in-law has never let me forget throughout my marriage is that, in her opinion, I should be grateful for being married to her son. She has told me on multiple occasions that I lucked out by getting someone like him, as if I somehow tricked him into being with me, and should spend every day proving that I'm worthy of being his wife. The funny thing is, my husband has never made me feel that way. Only she has. When I was pregnant with our child, her entitlement and bitterness became even more apparent. Instead of being happy for us, she hated it. She didn't congratulate us, didn't celebrate with us, nothing. She asked my husband multiple times if it was even his child to begin with, which was extremely insulting to me. It's like she genuinely believed that I was a woman who just slept around, even though I was married to my husband and loyal to him. Mother-in-law only changed her tune once she found out that we were having a son. Suddenly, she was ecstatic, talking to everyone about how she was getting her first grandchild, and most importantly, a grandson. The way she switched up her attitude so fast was honestly disturbing. That's when I realized her obsession with getting a male heir. In her eyes, a son was something to be proud of, something that carried on the family name. If we had had a daughter, she probably wouldn't have cared at all. But because it was a boy, she suddenly started acting like the world revolved around her new role as a grandmother. When it was time for my delivery, my mother-in-law took her entitlement to a whole new level. She insisted on being in the delivery room, even though both my husband and I had made it crystal clear to her that we didn't want her there. Giving birth is one of the most personal, intense, and vulnerable experiences a woman can go through. And I wanted to share that moment with my husband, not my overbearing mother-in-law. But of course, in her mind, it wasn't about me or what I was comfortable with. It was about her and what she wanted. She acted like she had some right to be there, as if my childbirth was a public event instead of a deeply personal experience. When we firmly told her no, she acted like we had committed some unforgivable crime against her. After my delivery, instead of simply respecting our decision and moving on, she went around telling everyone that I had robbed her of the experience of watching her grandchild be born. Robbed her as if my labor and my pain were supposed to be a show for her entertainment. The entitlement was unbelievable. She made herself out to be the victim, even then, completely ignoring the fact that this was my body, my baby, and my decision. And as if that wasn't enough, she tried to insert herself into yet another major moment, naming our son. My husband and I had chosen a name we both loved, but mother-in-law absolutely hated it. She demanded that we change it to something more traditional, because in her eyes, she wanted a say in our son's name. She kept acting like naming our own child was somehow a group decision where she had veto power. Another reason why mother-in-law hated the name was that I wanted our son to have both my surname and my husband's. To her, this was completely unacceptable. She felt that I was being too entitled, and that according to her, only the father's surname should be passed down to the child. It didn't matter that I was the one who carried our baby for 9 months, went through labor, and gave birth. None of that in her mind gave me the right to have my last name included. I pointed out the obvious. Unlike her son, I was the one who physically brought our child into this world. I was the one who went through all the pain, exhaustion, and effort to bring our son into existence. So logically, why shouldn't he have my last name too? It wasn't like I was taking my husband's name off. I was simply adding mine alongside his. But mother-in-law got even more worked up, ranting about how I was acting too modern and how this was exactly why she had never liked me. As if me wanting my name included in my own child's identity was somehow proof that I was a terrible person. Thankfully, my husband supported me and was not having it either. He shut her down immediately, making it clear that our son's name was our choice, not hers. She was taken aback since she was so used to getting her way that she genuinely didn't know how to handle being told no. She tried to argue with him, but he did not care. At the end of the day, she could rant and complain all she wanted, but it didn't change anything. She wasn't in the delivery room, she didn't get to pick our child's name, and she had no control over our decisions. And judging by the way she reacted, she hated that. But in the end, our son got both our surnames just as I had wanted. So looking back, her entitlement over my house shouldn't have surprised me. This is just who she is. Someone who thinks she deserves to have control over things that aren't hers simply because she wants them. But knowing that doesn't make dealing with her any less exhausting. Ever since that phone call, my mother-in-law will not let this matter go. She keeps hounding me non-stop, trying to pressure me into changing the house deed and adding her name to it. She constantly messages me, and in one of her latest messages, she has actually written that, as the woman who gave birth to my husband, she deserves to be on the deed. She feels she has contributed so much just by giving birth to my husband. So according to her, it's not unfair to ask because without her, my husband wouldn't exist. I can't believe the mental gymnastics she's pulling to gaslight and manipulate me. By her logic, should I just start handing out ownership to anyone connected to my husband and me? Her reasoning is completely absurd, but it's obvious she isn't going to stop anytime soon. She is so convinced that she deserves part of my property that she is giving me whatever nonsensical explanation she can to convince me. Mother-in-law doesn't care how ridiculous or pushy she sounds. So, Reddit AITA for standing my ground. Am I wrong for not including my husband's name in the deed update 1? A lot of people are wondering where my husband stands in all of this. So let me clear that up. He knows exactly what's going on, and he completely has my back. He has, in fact, asked his mother to back off, reminding her that this is my house, my money, and my decision. But of course, she has refused to listen. She keeps insisting that she knows what she's doing as if she's some kind of financial expert instead of someone who lost all her wealth due to her own bad investments. I honestly feel so lucky to have a husband who truly understands equality. He wasn't always like this when we first met. As anyone can imagine, he grew up with a mother who had very traditional views. So naturally, some of that rubbed off on him. But over the years, as we have talked, he has listened to my perspective. He has really opened his mind and grown into the man he is today. One of the things I admire most is that he actively chooses to understand my side rather than just dismissing it like so many others might. He doesn't see me as less just because I'm a woman, and he knows that decisions, especially big ones like buying a house or raising a child, should be ours to make as a couple, not dictated by what his mother thinks. That being said, my mother-in-law is relentless. My husband does stand up for me whenever he can, shutting down her nonsense and telling her to back off. But no matter how many times he tells her to respect our choices, she just refuses to listen. She is pushy in every way. This is why my husband has finally had enough. He has told me to just block her since she won't stop hounding me. He has assured me that he'll deal with her from now on. He doesn't want me stressing over this nonsense. And honestly, I agree. It's not worth my energy. If she wants to keep throwing tantrums, she can take them up with him because I'm done entertaining her entitlement. Update 2. I want to clear up a few things that people keep asking me in the comments. 1. Why didn't I put the house in both of our names? The simple answer is that I didn't want to. This is something that both my husband and I discussed. He had no issue with the house being solely in my name since it was my inheritance that made the purchase possible. It wasn't a power move or anything, it just made the most sense. Although I have no intention of ever divorcing my husband, I still don't think it's fair to include his name on this money when it was meant solely for me. He also has a car in his name, and I've never asked him to add mine. We both have good incomes and share our financial responsibilities, equally contributing to bills, groceries, and our son's expenses. 2 is mother-in-law, like this about everything. The short answer is yes. The long answer is that she has always been this controlling and entitled, especially when it comes to things involving her son. This is just the latest in a long list of oversteps. 3. Why is she so obsessed with my house? I honestly think she sees it as some kind of power move. She wants control over it so she can feel like she still holds some authority in our lives, but that's never going to happen. 4. What does my father-in-law think? He doesn't care about any of this drama. In fact, he's been nothing but supportive. After we bought the house, he actually sent us flowers to congratulate us on securing a home for our family. He told my husband that he's proud of us for making such a responsible decision and setting ourselves up for a stable future. Unlike mother-in-law, he understands that this is a huge milestone for us. And instead of nitpicking over whose name is on the deed, he's just happy that we have a home of our own. Honestly, if mother-in-law were more like father-in-law, we wouldn't even be in this situation. But unfortunately, she's not. So, here we are. So yeah, at this point I hope I have answered all your questions. I am officially washing my hands of the situation. My husband is going to handle mother-in-law from now on since I have blocked her and don't want her in my life if she wants to keep acting like this. Then that's her and my husband's problem, not mine. Update 3. It's been 2 weeks since my last update. My mother-in-law showed up at our house completely unannounced, demanding to talk to my husband. The moment I saw her standing at our door, I felt my blood boil. I had no interest in entertaining her nonsense, so I just took my son and went straight to our room. I didn't even bother greeting her. She ended up staying for over an hour, and from where I was, I could clearly hear all her yelling. She was furious with my husband, pissed that he wasn't being more of a man by demanding that I include his name on the house deed. She kept going on and on about how he was letting me disrespect him continuously and how in her time, no man would have ever allowed his wife to own the family home without his name attached. She then continued to tell him that this is why she had wanted him to marry a more traditional wife. At that point, I had to physically stop myself from rolling my eyes so hard they'd get stuck. My husband told her straight up that he wasn't going to listen to any more of her nonsense. He told her to get off her high horse and stop demanding things that made absolutely no sense. He made it crystal clear that I am his wife and the mother of his child, and that she had no right to speak about me the way she did. My husband also firmly told her that this was our marriage, not hers, and that she had zero right to dictate how we handled our finances and assets. He kept repeating to her that he had no issue with the house being in my name, and that the only person with a problem was her. In the end, he made it clear to her that if she continued to behave this way, constantly overstepping, trying to dictate our marriage and disrespecting me, then he would have no choice but to go low, contact with her just like I had. He wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences and he wasn't going to take her side. It's honestly sad that mother-in-law is so obsessed with control that she can't even recognize a good thing when it's right in front of her. Not once has mother-in-law appreciated the fact that we now own our home, no mortgage, no rent. Not once has she congratulated us, yet she keeps coming to us with ridiculous demands. This house will be filled with beautiful memories, and one day it will belong to our son. Any rational person would be happy for us. But instead of celebrating this milestone, mother-in-law has done nothing but create problems. It's just exhausting at this point. No matter how many times we tell her to back off, she refuses. She's determined to make this an issue when no one else sees it that way. But if she thinks she can wear me down, she's in for a rude awakening. I'm not changing a damn thing. My husband and I are on the same page, and that's all that matters. After she finally left, my husband looked completely drained. I felt really sad for him. I told him in no uncertain terms that his mother should not be allowed to just show up at our place whenever she pleases. Every time she visits us, she brings nothing but negativity and drama. Her behavior kills the mood in our home, and I refuse to let her keep doing that. This is supposed to be our safe space, a place where we can enjoy life and raise our son peacefully. My husband completely agrees. He has told me that from now on, he will make it very clear to her that she is not welcome to just drop by unannounced. If she wants to visit, she will need to ask first, and he can meet her somewhere outside. Update 4. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. You see, this week we hosted a party at our house for our close family friends and relatives. We wanted everyone to see our new home. It was meant to be a happy, stress-free gathering, which is exactly why we did not invite my in-laws. We didn't want mother-in-law there, plain and simple. My father-in-law understood and didn't make a fuss about it. But of course, mother-in-law just couldn't let it go. She somehow found out from one of our relatives and showed up in the middle of the party uninvited. My husband and I were absolutely shocked. She barged in like she belonged there, completely ignoring the fact that we had intentionally left her out. It was honestly embarrassing. Right away, she told us that she was furious that we hadn't invited her. She felt completely snubbed and demanded to know why we would exclude family from such an event. My husband, to his credit, stayed calm but firm. He made it very clear to her that while we were not happy with her uninvited presence, this was not the time or place to discuss such a matter. We had guests over, and we didn't want to start a scene over her hurt feelings. If she wanted to talk, we could do it later, but not in front of everyone. However, as usual, mother-in-law just had to make everything about herself. Instead of just leaving like a normal person after being told we'd talk later, she stayed and made things so much worse. At some point during the party, she got drunk and went on a full-blown rant in front of all our guests. She started complaining about how much she hated that this was my house and not her son's as well. She kept saying how unfair it was, how I was being selfish for not putting his name on the deed, and how I had somehow wronged him by using my inheritance to buy this home. My husband was absolutely livid and completely embarrassed. I could see the frustration on his face as he tried to quiet her down, but she just wouldn't listen. He then demanded that she leave immediately. And of course, in classic mother-in-law fashion, instead of taking responsibility for her actions, she burst into tears and started crying in front of everyone there about how he had changed after getting married. She was acting like he was being a cruel son for standing up for himself and refusing to let her insult us. My husband was furious. Our guests were uncomfortable. Mother-in-law had successfully ruined an evening that was supposed to be fun. She kept crying, but my husband didn't give in. He booked her a cab and she left eventually. Since the party, my husband and I have decided to go no contact with mother-in-law. Her behavior has been out of control, and we refuse to keep letting her bring this kind of negativity into our lives. Of course, mother-in-law hasn't taken this quietly. She has been calling everyone she can, relatives and family friends, to tell them that I'm the villain for refusing to give in to her ridiculous demands. She's now spinning the story to make it seem like I'm the problem. And now, as if that wasn't bad enough, mother-in-law has been threatening to make my husband divorce me. Apparently, she thinks she has that kind of power over him. She's been telling relatives that she's working on convincing him to leave me because, in her words, I'm too controlling and disrespectful for not putting his name on the house deed. She genuinely believes that if she pushes hard enough, he'll give in to her. However, the reality is that my husband isn't going anywhere. If anything, mother-in-law's behavior has only made him more protective of our marriage. Unfortunately, because of mother-in-law's rant, some relatives have taken her side and have reached out to us saying that we're being too harsh on her. But most people also understand why I chose to keep the house in my name. They know this was my inheritance, my decision, and that mother-in-law is the only one making a big deal out of it. Here's the thing. This was never anyone's business to begin with, but mother-in-law has made it everyone's business by publicly complaining about it and trying to make herself the victim here. She could have just let it go, but instead she's turned this into a full-on family drama. At this point, my husband and I are tired of the constant stress, the entitlement, and the emotional manipulation. We are doing everything we can to distance ourselves from her.